Morning glory and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh on this Thursday. There's a lot of news. I'll give you some headlines and I'll get to my major topic to begin the program. We have satellite imagery showing that we have collected at least 4 and possibly as many as 7 of our B-2 Spirit stealth bombers at Diego Garcia, along with the KC-135 Stratotankers necessary to refuel them for long flights. That's a message to Iran that Donald Trump is very serious about their 2 choices. They can open the doors and denuclearize, or we can blow open the doors and destroy the facilities. I don't think it's an accident that this story is out there. I don't think it's an accident that they allowed the B-2s to be photographed. It is clearly a message to the mullahs that Donald Trump is serious. Also want to let you know that last night, the Knesset in Israel passed a judicial reform bill. I'm going to talk about it later in the program with Josh Kroshauer. It seems common sense to me. The world did not end. It does not go into effect until after the next Knesset election. I'll tell you about the particulars. But there were lots of demonstrations for 2.5 years. And when you look at the small print, you say, that seems like a normal thing to me. I also want you to know that there's a story in the Wall Street Journal that made my eyebrows go way up. Its headline is U.S. prosecutors probe tip about the timing of the Pfizer vaccine. It begins. Soon after President Trump won the presidential election in November, it's not after he won, it's after he lost the presidential election in November, British drug maker GSK brought an unusual claim to the attention of federal prosecutors in Manhattan. A senior GSK scientist who formerly worked at rival Pfizer had told GSK colleagues that Pfizer delayed announcing the success of its COVID vaccine in 2020 until after the 2020 election. If that's true, and I don't know that it's true, I know it's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, that's going to be a major scandal. And not just because it would have impacted the election, had there been a COVID vaccine available before the vote in 2020, but because every delay in the rollout meant people got the COVID vaccine later, which means there's going to be a class action suit to end all class action suits if in fact it's true. I'll follow that. We also have another Wall Street Journal story about Medicaid fraud. Billions and billions in Medicaid fraud. Because it turns out people were enrolled in Medicaid in 2 states at once, which means double the payment. Follow that. RFK Jr. at HHS announced he's cutting 10,000 jobs, and there are lots of other things. But I'm going to focus my opening today on yesterday's testimony by the head of National Public Radio, Katherine Maher. Now, if you missed yesterday's show, you missed some of the clips. I want to replay them for you. This is her conversation with Representative Brandon Gill, cut number 2.
Thank you, Chairwoman Green, and I apologize. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm losing my voice here. Ms. Maher, I want to start with you. Just generally, would you say you generally agree or disagree with the following statement? The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles?
I would not say I agree with that, sir.
That's good to hear. It's interesting because a lot of your thinking, as expressed by your public statements, is deeply infused with economic and cultural Marxism. Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half-decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't? You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. How white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, "Yes, the North. Yes, all of us. Yes, America. Yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt. Yes, reparations. Yes, on this day."
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone
Seems
to
to
pay
be what you're
reparations, sir.
suggesting.
And then she goes on. Mr. Gill is very good at this, by the way, because he lets the witness talk. Everyone could take a lesson from Brendan Gill. Cut number 3.
Do you believe that looting is morally wrong?
I believe that looting is illegal, and I refer to it as counterproductive. I think it should be prosecuted.
Do you believe it's morally wrong, though?
Of course.
Of course. Then why did you refer to it as counterproductive? It's a very different way to describe it.
It is both morally wrong and counterproductive, as well as being
You tweeted, "It's hard to be mad about protests," in reference to the BLM protests, not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression. You didn't condemn the looting. You said that it was counterproductive. NPR also promoted a book called In Defense of Looting. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I'm unfamiliar with that book, sir, and I don't believe that was at my time
You
at
tweeted
NPR.
that you read that book, but
I don't believe that I did read that book, sir.
do you think that a few years ago NPR educated America about, quote, the whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts? Do you think that that's an appropriate use of tax dollars?
I was not at NPR at the time, sir.
That's not the question, though. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of our tax dollars?
I think our tax dollars that we use are to be able to provide a wide range of
So I'll take that as a yes. You do believe that that's appropriate. Your health advisor at NPR also stated in an interview that, quote, fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat. Would you like to explain how fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat? That's an editorial at NPR.
I am not familiar with the editorial, and I don't believe that was published during my
So
time.
it goes on
It's
like
called
this.
Diet culture.
I want to make a point. Katherine Maher is not an outlier. Katherine Maher is a hardcore leftist, but the leadership at NPR, like the reporters at NPR, like the editors at NPR, reflect the Democratic Party that it serves. I don't listen to NPR because it is so hard left. But I want you, she's not an outlier. She is the perfect representative of where the Democratic Party has gone. It's lost its mind. And you know that, and I know that. Bernie Sanders and AOC and the squad are the leaders of the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris is the leader of the Democratic Party. The normies are gone. Katherine Maher is the leader of the Democratic Party. Now, she's indistinguishable from every other leader of the Democratic Party. I'm talking about her ideology. Mr. Gill is 31 years old. He knows how to examine this. He knows to use their words. Believe them when they write things. Believe them when they say things. Believe them when they go on MSNBC and say crazy stuff. Believe them. The Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party that I've been covering I've been in this business since 1990, and it changed after Clinton. It began to slide away not long after 9/11. It might have been collective trauma, but when they began with Bush lied, people died, it got worse from there. Donald Trump completely unhinged them. Twice, 3 times actually. Joe Biden was not the president. It was a regency. We don't know who that president was. We don't know who was making the choices, but it was run by the hard left. And I just want to be very blunt with you. What you heard from Maher yesterday, and there's a lot more, and I'll play a lot of it today, is not out of the norm of the new Democratic Party. The new Democratic Party is Howard Zinn's party. They were raised on Howard Zinn. They believe Howard Zinn. They believe it all. They are not normal Democrats. Some of them are trying to hang on. There are a few normies left, but they are not what you get. You go listen to the Pod Bros. You go listen to, for example, Ben Rhodes, the Metternich of MSNBC. I don't do it. It's not good for your mental health. But I want you to know what happened yesterday was the drapes were pulled back. And we got full frontal Democratic Party mainstream thinking, which is hard left. And she had to lie about it. She had to lie about, I don't remember that. I don't know what I was thinking about. I don't know if I read that book. There's a lot of evasion. There's a lot of lies. But what you need to realize is that's who they are. And if you're listening to NPR, you have to turn it off. And if you're a Republican lawmaker, you have to defund it and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and PBS. And everybody listening to this program has got to realize the choices you make in what you consume in the news world, you're either subsidizing that worldview or you're saying no to that worldview. And I earnestly hope you begin to say no to that worldview, because it is wrong, it is dangerous, it will be the ruin of America, because it is, as Mr. Gill pointedly made the reference, culturally and economically Marxist. I'll be right back. I'm Hugh Hewitt.